4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman has transformed my relationship with time. At its heart is a simple idea that we can't do it all, and so we'll have to choose what we do and what we don't do, and it's between those two decisions that we really get to craft the life that's right for us. It's a book that promotes human scale ideas, leaning on Eastern and Western philosophies, a load of research, and it's also really funny. I don't know about your relationship with time, but if you've ever felt you can't really relax because you're not using your time usefully, or it simply feels like you've got too much to do, then this could really be the book for you. I'm Raj, and here are the 4 ideas from this book that really stood out to me. 1. The importance of attention. This book describes attention in an astonishing way. Not just that it's valuable, but it's the most valuable thing we have, since our lives are lived through what we pay attention to. Burkeman writes, "Looking back on life, whatever compelled your attention from moment to moment is simply what your life will have been. So when you pay attention to something you don't especially value, it's not an exaggeration to say you're paying with your life." Reading this book encouraged me to be more conscious of what I was doing with my attention and the effects of my paying that attention. So how I felt after watching the news, picking up a phone, reading an article, and scrolling through the comments. Then. It made me think of having a set amount of attention credits throughout the day, which then made me think of using those attention credits more thoughtfully, and that's really felt great. 2. You can't do it all, so please don't try. The point isn't to be defeatist, it's to be a realist. Burkeman compares the myth of Sisyphus to the modern struggles of keeping on top of our inbox. In the myth of Sisyphus, here is an individual condemned to a life of repeatedly pushing a rock up a hill, only to have it roll down again and again. And Burkeman draws a parallel to our inboxes. Just as we clear our emails, a whole load of new ones appear. And it seems to be that the new ones are even greater in volume than the ones we've been able to reply to, because they generate their own volume in turn. The American anthropologist Edward T. Hall puts it like this: "Time feels like an unstoppable conveyor belt, bringing us new tasks as quickly as we can dispatch the old ones, and becoming more productive just seems to cause the belt to speed up, or else to break down." Burkeman contends that the day will never arrive when you finally have everything under control. But you know what? It's excellent news, he writes. It's excellent news because it forces us to choose, and in that choosing, hopefully, we pick the things that mean most to us. So rather than saying yes to every little thing in the vague hope that we will be able to do absolutely everything and be good little worker bees, instead, by saying no to a few things, we get to craft a life more aligned to what we want, and it's about cultivating a joy of missing out. 3. Time is not a resource. A resource implies that something can be owned, but we can't own time. We don't know how much we'll get, each moment might be our last. We should not feel entitled. But rather than this being morbid, Burkeman reassures us that it's in fact enlivening. Once time is a resource to be used, you start to feel pressure to use it well and to berate yourself when you feel you've wasted it. Instead of simply living our lives as they unfold in time, it becomes difficult not to value each moment, primarily according to its usefulness for some future goal. Now, superficially, it seems like a sensible way to live, especially in a hyper-competitive economic climate in which it feels as though you must constantly make the most of your time if you want to stay afloat, to prioritize future benefits over current enjoyments. Now, this hit hard. When do we stop sacrificing for the future and prioritize the present? When do we switch gears? And if we postpone living for too long, might we even forget how to do it altogether? Now, interestingly, Burkeman also refers to a hyper-competitive economic climate. There's a systemic point here which sits along a deeply personal one to Burkeman. He goes on to share, "Though I'd been largely unaware of it, my productivity obsession had been serving a hidden emotional agenda. It helped me combat the sense of precariousness inherent to the modern world of work. If I could meet every editor's demand," he works as a journalist, "while launching various side projects of my own, maybe one day I'd finally feel secure in my career and my finances." But it also held at bay certain scary questions about what I was doing with my life. He then quotes Nietzsche: "We labour at our daily work more ardently and thoughtlessly than is necessary, because to us it's even more necessary not to have leisure to stop and think. Haste is universal because everyone is in flight from himself." Now, it's not going to be true for us all. We're all going to have our own reasons for trying to do too much. But as Burkeman puts it, I'm aware of no other time management technique that's half as effective as just facing up to the way things truly are. I absolutely love this. 4. Rest easy. In the depths of the pandemic, I found it really hard to switch off, especially in the evenings. I felt restless and anxious, as though leisure was a bit of a waste of time. And I know I wasn't alone. To help with this, Burkeman offers this view. To Aristotle, leisure wasn't the means to some end. On the contrary, it was the end to which everything else was a means. After all, the Latin word for business, negotium, translates literally as not leisure, reflecting the view that work was a deviation from the highest human calling. I mean, who are we to argue with Aristotle? Burkeman takes this further, referencing the American author Jennifer Matthews and her awesomely titled book, Radically Condensed Instructions for Being Just As You Are. She writes, "We can't get anything out of life. There is no outside, no little pocket to which we could steal life's provisions and squirrel them away." Reading this felt amazing. If Aristotle politely knocked on the door of my need to justify the usefulness of my time, well then Jennifer Matthews bulldozed her way in and started tap dancing on my dining table. When 4,000 Weeks was first recommended to me, in the same week by two different people, first by a friend and then by my wife, I was not feeling super enthusiastic about reading it. I hate productivity stuff. I've never felt like life is there to be optimized, and I've always been fond of the Italian idea of dolce far niente, the sweetness of doing nothing. But the irony is, of course, I find that a lot easier to do in theory than in practice. This book helped change that. And the biggest compliment I can give it is that it's allowed me to find rest way easier. And it might be the reason why it's the book I reread most over the course of my life. If you do get around to reading it, or you've read it already, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. I've also put in a link if you're interested in buying the book. Thanks for watching, thanks for being you, and I'll catch you next time.